This is the first position that we're going to look at. It's taken from a game played between two grandmasters. All of the games that we're going to be examining are games either played by masters or a position taken from one of my own games. So let's get to it. So first of all, feel free to pause the video and try to evaluate this position yourself. It's actually black to move. Have a little think for a few minutes about who you consider to be doing better in this position. Okay, so let's now actually explain by looking at the list of key factors and going down it. So the first factor, king placement or king safety. We see that white's king is not completely immune to attack. His king is placed on the c-file. There are possibilities of b4, which would kick out the knight. There's also the possibility of just a general pawn storm, which would compromise his pawn cover. So his king is not perfectly safe. However, black's king, relatively speaking, is much, much worse. Because for now, black's king is right there in the central file, the E file, and it's going to be very easy for white to deliver some kind of a check along the E file, or perhaps even with his H1 rook. And it's not clear exactly how black is going to react to it. There's simply no pawn on the E file. Also, his bishop, which he'd like to remove in order to be able to castle, is tied down to the somewhat unstable pawn here on G7, which we see is being attacked by the queen. So therefore, he has very, very serious king safety problems that don't appear to have an easy solution. After king safety, what should we consider? We should consider the material balance. In fact, it's the preference of some players to first count the material and then look at the king safety. This is really entirely up to you. So if we look at the material, we see that white has 4 pawns and black actually has 5. So black is doing a little bit better on that front. We see that distribution of the minor pieces is 2 knights for white and 1 bishop, and 2 bishops for black and a knight. So black has the bishop pair. However, this advantage, we mentioned in the introduction that the bishop pair usually represents a small advantage over having a bishop and a knight. This advantage is somewhat negated by the fact that the white knights are actually quite effective. They're centralized knights covering a lot of interesting and potentially rather lucrative squares. So therefore, we can more or less cancel those out, but we can certainly agree that black is up a pawn. What about the central control? Well, neither side has central control in terms of having pawns placed like on e4 and d4 as we saw in one of the previous examples. However, white's pieces exert a greater control over the center. Now, we can actually classify this under a different category, which is that of piece harmony, when we said some pieces can just be better placed and be superior. So white's pieces appear to be better placed than black's. In terms of pawn structure, it's a similar structure for both. They both have 2 pawn islands. Here is the black pawn islands on a6 and b5, and f7, g7, and h6, and white from a2 to c2 and the h2 pawn. So this is about equal. And in terms then of the next factor, space, well, who controls more of the board? From a structural point of view, black has a little bit more space. But in this particular case, it's not really such a big deal, because with the opposite side castling, I say this because black will aim to castle on the king side. So with kings on opposite sides of the board, attack is the name of the game. And so piece placement, initiative, open lines, all of these factors take on a way greater role than, a little bit of extra queenside space. Finally, the other factors left to discuss are initiative and open lines. We already saw the issue of the open line, the open E file, when discussing king safety. And we can also see now this open D file gives black some serious problems. His bishop on d7 cannot move because his queen on d8 would be taken in this case. So the bishop is pinned. And we see the d-file giving black some serious problems. We see that the bishop on d7 is pinned, since moving it would result in the loss of the queen. We also see some other open lines that are not files. Specifically, this diagonal really creates problems for black because, again, the queen on d8 is tied down to the defense of the rook. Notice that active white queen. If you notice, the queen can move, let's say to g3 or to f2, if she feels like doing so, but black, her counterpart, cannot say the same thing because queen c7 would, as pointed out, would result in the loss of this rook. So therefore, the white queen is superior to the black queen in her scope. The attack is not only on the rook on a8, but also pressuring this important point g7. And that's a very important consideration because the bishop would like to move, but doing so will result in queen takes g7, not only winning the material back, but fracturing the pawn structure. Finally, in terms of initiative, well, the side that is most likely to claim the initiative, in spite of the fact that it's black to move, is the side with the better development and the better king safety and the better placed pieces, and that is white. So in this case, there are many possible ways to attack and to dictate the tempo of the game for white, and so we should expect that white will take over the initiative. So that is an assessment of these key factors that you use when evaluating a position, and hopefully at the end of it, if you didn't already think that white was better, hopefully this now makes sense and you can see that white's position is in fact a lot better here. Black, who is a strong player, played the move bishop to e7. Now, this is actually almost pretty much forced actually, because black simply needs to close up the e-file. And otherwise, I mean, if he say were to try and proceed with his attack with a move like b4, while his king is still here, his attack will not succeed and his king will meet a quick end after a move such as knight c to d5, for example. Here's a nice illustrative line. Knight takes d5, queen takes d5, and now after bishop to e7, black appears to have done something quite smart, played b4, and then after knight c d5, knight takes d5, and this move queen takes d5, there is no longer pressure against g7. So he'll be able to castle, and everything will be all right. That's not the case, however, first of all, because there's a lot of pressure on this bishop on d7, so castling is not an option, as it would lose a piece. And second of all, white has a really, really strong move right now that prevents castling, the move knight to g6. A fantastic piece sacrifice attacking the rook and at the same time covering f8, so there's no possibility of castling. In the event of a move such as bishop to e6, queen c6 check would finish the game very soon. Bishop d7 and rook takes d7. Notice how white preys on the instability of this rook on a8. Queen takes rook, queen takes a8, check. It's game over. So therefore, black's best bet here would be to simply capture the knight. Now, bishop to c4 is the idea. Having weakened this entire diagonal and also created now an open file on the f-file, black is going to find it impossible to successfully defend his king. Rook f8, covering against the mating threat. Rook hf1, rook takes rook, rook takes rook. Bishop f5 is best, but after queen f7 check, king d7, rook d1 check, we see that in the attack, well, black has parried a lot of the threats, but he will now be losing his queen, and the position is hopeless. This is just one illustrative line in the event of a move like b4, attacking while his king is still in the center of the board. Not a good idea in general. So black instead played bishop e7. And here, quite frankly, white should just have taken the pawn. Now, after rook g8, queen takes h6, white is actually, once again, has converted his better position into a tangible material advantage. But white wanted more, and he continued with a very reasonable move. Rook to g1, really putting an end to the possibility of black castling. since queen takes g7 would be lights out. And it worked because black here played the move pawn to g5, having to react to these sort of threats here. In the future, queen takes g7 may even come with more strength. Let's say, for example, if black now plays the move rook b8, then white could actually take the pawn on g7, rook goes to g8, and a tactical shot, queen takes knight on f6. Rook takes g1 is met by queen h8 check, and bishop takes queen on f6 is met by rook takes rook. King will have to move to e7, and now knight cd5 check appears to be very strong because that forces king d6, and after knight takes f6 with the discovered check, everything will fall for black. The queen will be lost and the bishop will also be lost in the process. So this is really impossible for black to continue in that line. The best bet that black would have would indeed be rook takes g1, but after queen check, bishop f6, queen e5 check. Notice black is forced to block once again with the bishop, because if queen e7, that unstable rook on b8 comes back to haunt him once again. Bishop e7, and here white has many ways to continue, but knight c to d5 is very, very strong. Many threats here, knight f6 check, knight takes e7 check, and even knight c7 check. There are too many threats. Black cannot defend, so the white initiative has really yielded a lot of dividends on this occasion. Okay, so after rook to g1, black instead played the move g5. Now, this not only keeps the material, but also enables black to consider castling. However, if we run down through our list again, we're talking about king safety, material balance, central control, piece harmony, structure, space, initiative, and open lines. Well, structure becomes a big factor here. The black pawn structure is now on the king's side permanently shattered. And it's also going to affect king safety because h4 may occur at some point. So even if black does in the future castle, he's going to have serious problems with his pawn. Such an easy target, and even the pawn on h6. We notice another factor as well, which is when you put your pawns like this on dark squares, you create many weaknesses on those light squares. And especially notice this diagonal. It may give the black king problems should he ever end up castling on the king side. For now, white has to react to the knight, so knight f to d5. And now black does indeed castle. So the new defect that arose in the position gears white's play here. Bishop goes to d3. The bishop is looking to eye up those compromised light squares, and also, of course, white still has ideas like h4 in reserve. Here, in a very uncomfortable position, but I mean, black could still continue to play with accurate moves, black makes a mistake. b4. This is very normal. When players are under stress, the number of mistakes is magnified. And this, by the way, I should say, is part of the benefit of playing dynamic attacking chess. So, can you see what the problem is? Feel free to pause the video if you'd like to solve here white to play and win. Okay, so I'm assuming you've already, those of you who wanted to pause it have already done so. I will now show the answer. Knight takes f6 check. Smart move, just eliminating the king's defender. This kingside knight is holding as well. If you notice, I actually show it to you with the actual black knight here. If we notice, the knight being on a dark square is controlling only those light squares. And so the pawns being on dark squares, well, they control only dark squares, right? So very, very important to remove this defender of those light squares. Knight takes, bishop takes, and now queen e4, immediately exploiting those light squared weaknesses. The threat is queen h7 with checkmate, so white can ignore the attacks on his knight. Rook goes to e8, queen h7 check. King to f8, and now bishop to c4. Notice the way that white is handling his initiative. He's constantly creating very, very strong threats and bringing more pieces into play. Black played rook to e7, but one of the drawbacks of this move is that it destabilizes the bishop on f6. So again, piece harmony. Notice how the black pieces are sort of falling out of coordination. Notice how that happened in the last game that I showed in the introductory section, when I showed this beautiful attack by Alekhine. And notice how the black player, in that case it was Rubinstein, his pieces constantly, they ended up on very strange squares with no real coordination. And this happens when you're trying your best to defend against a series of sequence of threats. So here queen takes h6 check. The bishop had to drop back to g7 because otherwise the next move is simply going to be queen takes bishop. Bishop to g7, queen takes g5. And here, not only has white actually recovered not only his one pawn, but he's now got an extra pawn. So not only has he converted his material deficit into an advantage, but actually it's even worse than that for black because the bishop on g7 cannot be defended. And if it is moved anywhere, then queen g8 will be checkmate. Some of you may be thinking, well, f6 would be a great move since it defends the bishop and at the same time creates an attack on the queen, and so there is a double attack. However, the problem is that the black king is still too unsafe, and queen takes f6 check is the most convincing solution. If bishop takes queen, rook g8 is checkmate. So therefore, in this position, black saw that there was no salvation and he resigned. Okay, that has been game 1. Let's now move on to game 2.